Hello all my Kenvians and welcome to a new episode of Discovering Doctor Who. I know I said in the previous video that I would be recording this one soon after that episode was ended. Unfortunately, the week had other plans for me, so this is actually being recorded the same day that the next episode, It Takes You Away, will be releasing. I think it's actually like about an hour before that's supposed to premiere here in my time. Regardless, today I'm going to be watching The Witchfinders, and I am genuinely intrigued as to what this might be about because, I mean, my only guess from the previous video was maybe it will have to do with Salem and the Puritans. Well, maybe not specifically Salem, but, you know, the Puritans, the witch hunts, things of that nature. Or it might go a completely different direction, because that's primarily in the US. There is undoubtedly other things over in Europe, in the UK, that occurred, and they'll probably go more that direction with it. But there's only one way for me to find out, and that is to watch the episode itself. So let's begin The Witchfinders in 3, 2, 1, go!
Is this Halloween? No. It's Sunday. Yeah, but what's it's every Sunday. Oh, happy Sunday.
The great-great-great-grandmother Hello. There's a very Plague Doctor-y vibe to it.
Whatever this is. We are forced to meet here once again.
She's been determined to be a witch, I take it.
This land.
Oh, does he?
We must continue to root him out. Now we have no way of knowing if Mother Twiston was a witch or not.
She died, so she's innocent.
Why are you walking? Where are the horses?
Horses abandoned by a host. They are
Why?
creatures of Satan.
Why?
Them all shot.
Why?
Doc.
I'm gonna be very angry this episode, aren't I?
I hope the fire
Feels that way so far.
some wine.
It's of Satan!
All witch trials have become a weak.
Come to your rescue. King James.
What?
You may prostrate yourselves. What I saw today convinced me you need assistance.
That's what we've just been saying.
Hold your tongue, lassie. Stick to snooping and leave the strategy to your king. This is no
Even
Even while they sleep.
Even if it means killing them all.
I'm sorry, I am being very angered by this episode for a variety of reasons, most of which have to do with this whole, you know, religious occult thing and, you know, killing all the witches. And I realize this is just a dramatization, but all the same, because people do still tend to act in similar ways, though thankfully not quite as violent, usually. I shall take a moment to breathe. Also, quick question. Was King James apparently actually like this? Because if he was... oh, wow. Anyway... Continuing. Alan Cumming! That's why he's so familiar. Holy crap. Alan Cumming. Okay. And that explains why he is, Actually, I don't think Alan Cumming plays that many bad guys, does he? I don't remember. But anyway. Okay. Continuing. Tentacles?
You alright?
Well, to be fair to King James, you are snooping.
I'm investigating.
Okay, yeah, that was funny. Hi!
For inspections. A true witch will not bleed if her mark is pricked. Madam, do you have one of these?
No, sire.
You may use this. It's my spare. But, there's still some really, really
us all of the time.
Yeah, and she has red hair.
Or else he will take us. That I have
Keep yourself safe. God will keep me safe. As long as I do his work. That felt good.
Oh! Hi!
It's not your granny, Willa.
Yes, it is.
What were those aberrations?
It is the work of Satan.
Shut up!
Oh, witches. Oh, Willa.
Your king, your family. Whatever I have done, I did to save all of our souls.
You killed people!
Going on, Becca.
Hold your tongue or I will cut it out. I'm not a fool, Doctor.
Well,
James,
debatable.
Satan's greatest foe.
Yeah. You wonder why the darkness comes back at you.
There's no darkness in me.
Oh,
There's a knowledge, beauty, and
All of them. It's Satan testing us. Get her out of there.
there's a little bit of Satan coming out of your eye, lady.
We must be certain.
Oh, mate, seriously. Not witches. Bodies possessed by alien mud. Come on.
hand me your king. What?
Haven't got your own. Hiding.
He does not.
Only I know the path up the hill. So you need me to lead the way.
She's right, Doctor.
You go up the hill.
People here than kings and queens. You don't know where to stand.
That's how you get up the hill, you go up it.
Yes, you will. Find the way.
Okay, given I can't disagree with him on that, but
Or else we will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger.
Ezekiel,
Tarantino.
what are you all doing? Where did they go?
oh, glorious. Glorious. I apologize for my, for how I acted during this episode. It should come as no surprise that a lot of which occurred and a lot of which was discussed was a bit, excuse the term, triggering for me. But, yeah. Let's talk about this episode, shall we? First, the Witchfinders. I was very much, well, I guess technically there were the Witchfinders. It was like the personal guard of King James there, but actually I guess they were just the personal guard. They weren't so much, like the Witchfinders were just kind of mentioned. Unless you include King James in there, which I guess so. I don't know. They never seem to really fully establish if there was a particular order of Witchfinders, other than just as like, oh, well, this person is a Witchfinder. Oh, this person is a Witchfinder. Oh, and I'm King James. I am a Witchfinder, and I have all this Witchfinder equipment. Yes. So, that actually brings me to, well, let's just start off. Mistress Savage. Which, we come to find her name is Becca, and I did not like her at any point throughout this entire episode. Like, even during the point where it's maybe it could have somewhat humanized her. When it was talking about when she was infected with the Morax, it was because she was being a horrible person who wanted to get her way, so she cut down this tree because it obstructed her view. And she went to her granny to try and fix it, but when the woman wouldn't, I guess, cut her leg off or lance it to get rid of the Morax, she had her killed. So yeah, no sympathy for Becca Savage whatsoever. The only thing I didn't fully approve of is the fact that King James decided to run up to her with the torch, and well, I mean, it did kill the Morax, thankfully, but all the same, or maybe it just sent it down into the prison. I'm not entirely sure exactly. But yeah, as for Becca Savage, zero sympathy. None whatsoever. Glad she's dead. So, the Dark Figure, which ended up being King James, which I honestly thought was just like, this is one of perhaps many who are the Witchfinders, which I was technically right, I guess. But yeah, the fact that we actually got King James in this episode, played by none other than Alan Cumming, who is an excellent actor. I truly do enjoy his performances. Which undoubtedly helped with the fact that I hated King James so much throughout this episode. They did seem to give him some... They humanized him for me a little bit. Like, they started with it when the Doctor was talking to him about his mother and all that. He acted out in fear, clearly, which got the Doctor almost killed / regenerated, although not really, obviously. But and then there at the end, he seemed to have some remorse for his actions. Not much, but enough to be apologetic and be upset by the fact that the Doctor was not talking to him. So yeah, King James in this episode, drama queen, kind of a dick. Well, I say kind of. My opinion of him changed throughout, but for the majority of the episode, yeah, he was right up there with Becca Savage. Didn't care for him. Would have been happy if he had died as well, but it didn't come to that. And again, he was humanized enough to where I don't hate him completely as a character. I still don't really know all that much about like the actual King James, so I can't say much about that. But moving on from there, I mean, there were a few things that I wrote down, mostly because just like I was feeling annoyed and I just had to do something to try and deaden the anger that I was feeling toward this episode. But that brings us to the Witchfinder General. And the fact that it started out with the Doctor being identified as the Witchfinder General by Becca, but when King James arrived and he was shown the psychic paper, it was Witchfinder General's assistant, or Witchfinder's assistant. Because, again, I know it's the time period, but, you know, God forbid a woman have a position of power, even though, you know, Becca had hers, whatever. But, oh my God, there was so much sexism going on in this episode. Again, appropriate for the time, but no less angering. Like, yeah, I would get in so much trouble if I were to personally be suddenly whisked away in a TARDIS back to that time period, because I would get angry very quickly. But yeah, just goes without saying, some very blatant sexism in this episode. And I mean, that really goes along with the whole witch trials thing, which, I mean, they said it was, like, even in the US, it's like, you know, it's God's work, it's eliminating Satan. But the truth of the matter is, it was, at the very least, in like 99% of the cases, there may have been some men who were burned in the witch trials as well, but the vast majority were women, and it was obviously not true. But all hidden underneath that nice mask of religion and being the conqueror of Satan. Yeah. But, well, I mean, as far as the Witchfinder General thing goes, then it's like, it switched over to Graham, who, obviously he's the older, more wise one, which don't get me wrong, I love Graham. It's just mostly I'm kind of hung up on the whole sexism thing, and it's hard for me to let go of. I'm still angry over a lot of this episode. But one thing that caught me by surprise, and it lends to the whole drama queen aspect of King James, and that's when he refers to Ryan as Nubian Prince. And, I mean, I'm not sure how to respond to the term, because honestly, while it is a strange thing and would undoubtedly be negatively taken if said to someone in today's world, I don't know if such a thing, if said back then, would have been deemed an insult or not. I don't know. I don't know. A lot of that has me confused. And also, I'm just blinded by anger. But, yeah, that Nubian Prince line was weird. And then the fact that King James wanted Ryan to go back to London with him, that was strange. And, I mean, one, yes, Ryan did protect him from the mud witches, the Morax. But, and it may have just been sort of the flamboyance of King James, but I'm curious if there was a sort of undertone implied. Probably not, and I'm probably just reading into it way too much, but I don't know. Was there a sort of undertone to it? I hope that you all know what kind of undertone I'm talking about. But regardless, yeah, that was interesting. And, I mean, one thing I wrote down was the tentacles, but that was clearly explained, which was kind of a cool effect, I have to say. It was strange that it's like, there was the tentacles or the tendrils that came out of the mud, but seemingly in the flashback, the tendril that came out was... It looked to me like it was a root of the tree, like a living root. But it may have just been the coloring that threw me off on that. But yeah, it's just like the whole tentacles thing and how it filled people was just very, very interesting to me. Very strange and very interesting. But yeah, actually, and speaking of that, well, there were I just called them the mud witches, but the Morax, there were quite a few of them. One thing that honestly did confuse me / I guess I was a bit annoyed by was the fact that there weren't more of them. Because apparently Becca had at that point, 36 people killed. But when they were up and walking around, there was, I don't remember the exact number, let's say 8 of them. And I don't know. I'm not sure it implies anything. It was probably just trying to keep the cast manageable, because having 36 people there in addition to the main cast would have been probably a bit hard to film, at least with what they were going for in this episode. But I did I found it strange that there were 36 of them killed, and yet only that handful of 8-ish people were brought back from the dead / filled by the Morax. So yeah, that was kind of strange. I wouldn't call it a full annoyance, just maybe a missed opportunity. Like, again, even though I know it's like it probably would have caused problems for filming, they could have worked around that and made it seem like truly like a true threat. Like at this point, it was a group of women with an axe who were going to bring back their king, But, well, and they also had, like, you know, the force powers, basically. But had there been a larger number of them, I feel like that would have, I don't know, just increased this intimidation factor. Just, like, there's so many of them. We don't stand a chance. You know, just something along those lines. I'll stop talking about that for right now, though. One question I have, and I do not know any sort of context, but when King James refers to Dr. D in response to Willa mentioning that she thought it was strange when she called herself the Doctor, who, or, well, I mean, not really what, but who was this Dr. D? Was this an actual person? Was it just made up for the episode? I don't know. It truly does confuse me, and probably by the time I'm done with this, I will forget to look it up. But yeah, it's just very strange to me. Very strange indeed. Oh, and then the moment with the muddy eye, just like, you know, the mud starting to come out of Becca's eye. Now, I won't lie, I thought that she was, like, legitimately just a horrible person, which she is. Or was. But for some reason I didn't think that maybe she had been not taken over, obviously, by the Morax, but that, like, she had a connection to the Morax to some degree. Which I do like the way that they rounded it up. It's like with the tree and the alien technology, in fact that it had been there for so long. Yeah, I just, again, found it to be rather intriguing, and when the mud actually did start coming out, I thought that was a nice touch. And it was just a sudden, like, oh, something, yeah, there is something off with her other than the fact that she's just a horrible person. But, yeah, so that was really cool. Already referred to the tree. The Morax themselves, maybe it's just me. And the fact that, again, there were so few of them relatively, but they didn't seem all that threatening other than the force powers thing. It's like, yeah, they could use it whenever they wanted, but as it stands, they weren't a very intimidating group. Like, the most intimidating of them was Becca, or the queen of the Morax, after she was fully taken over. Because, like, you know, the prosthetics or whatever it was they used for the face was really well done, and that was actually pretty freaky looking. But then the others just, they just looked like zombies. Pretty freaky zombies that can talk, and were carrying an axe, so, you know, there is some intimidation factor there. But as a whole, maybe it's just the fact that their king hadn't been released, and, like, the king was the true source of their power, but I don't know, just didn't seem like a very threatening group. And maybe it's because, like, the women that they took over, they were all dead. It's like, to the best of my knowledge, other than Becca, they didn't get into any other living people. And if they do have the ability to do that, why wouldn't they just go into the village and start taking people's bodies over? That seems like it would be the smart way to go about it. Or that seems like a true alien invasion kind of way to go about it. So, yeah, as a big bad, they weren't truly terrifying or intimidating. That falls more on the whole religious witch hunt thing. But yeah, so I don't know what else to say about that. It's just like, you know, they were an okay enemy. They were fine. Just could have been better. But overall, how do I feel about this episode after all the things that I've said? I know that it had me really upset at a lot of points, but it was a good episode. It was a good episode that got across some unexpected messages. It did have, again, it had some downfalls with the overall villain, or like the true villains, I guess. Could have been handled maybe a slightly better way. But overall, I did enjoy it. It definitely got an emotional response out of me. And yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. Would I say it's one of the better episodes of the season so far? Or, I'm sorry, the series so far? Maybe not. Again, it did have some downfalls that worked against it, primarily the main villain. But as far as its overall quality, it was good. It was well done. It seemed very timely. The overall attitude of the times seemed to be spot on, which is part of which angered me. So yeah, it's good. It's good. I enjoyed it. So I'm very curious to hear what you all had to say about this episode. I know a lot of the episodes that have touched on certain things, like with the racism, in this case, more sexism, some of the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the more touchy subjects, shall we say. There have been some people that have just kind of dismissed the episode as being too preachy, which, hello, have you ever heard of sci-fi? That's what they do. But, yeah, I'm very interested to hear what you all have to say. In regard to, some of the more touchy subjects that will undoubtedly be discussed in the comments, please keep it civil. Please, oh please. In the words of Will Wheaton? Yeah. In the words of Will Wheaton, don't be a dick. If you are, well, if you find that your comment has gone missing, it's probably your fault. It was done by me, but it is your fault. So, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, again, I'm really interested in hearing what you all have to say about this episode, my thoughts on it. And again, I do apologize for this episode coming out late. The next one, which, well, it's 8 p.m. right now as I'm talking, so I guess it's probably coming on as I speak. And I will be able to watch it tomorrow on Amazon. So, yeah. Again, looking forward to hearing what you all have to say. And until next time for It Takes You Away, the TARDIS. But until then, everyone, I am Papa Kenn, and I will see you in the next episode of Discovering Doctor Who. Alonzi! It's a magic wand. Bye.